As I've mentioned, you all will be muted for the duration of today's webinar, but there is a chat feature in GoToMeeting where several customer advocates are available to address any questions as we go. And if you can't stay for the question and answer portion at the end, please feel free to email us anytime at support@owlpractice.ca with any follow-up questions. Our team is always happy to help. Our agenda for the meeting today is as follows. We're going to be talking about a few key 2018 OWL statistics. We're going to talk about the features released to OWL's clinic portal, and then we'll also talk about features released to our client portal. And as I mentioned, we'll end with a question and answer period. So let's talk about some data from 2018. In 2018, OWL customers grew significantly, and we're grateful to all of you for entrusting us with your practices. To date, OWL users have scheduled over 1.6 million sessions. You've also created over 2 million invoices and receipts. You've written and signed over 800,000 session notes, and you've uploaded over 400,000 documents to the platform as well. At the start of 2018, we upgraded our servers to accommodate all this growth, and we're prepared for even more of it in 2019. So these stats are staggering, and they show us how much you rely on OWL every day for basic practice function. When we talk about building new features for OWL, one of the questions we hear often is, how does OWL decide what to build next? We start by asking our users to send us their feedback and requests, and these requests are thoroughly researched and documented and then monitored for demand. We prioritize and weigh what we'll develop based on user needs, evolving trends and patterns in the mental health and wellness space, and strategic business initiatives as well. But when it comes time to make these decisions, first and foremost, we always consider the user needs. There's no one way to run your business, and we've learned that the clinics using OWL have varied styles and approaches based on your unique individual needs. For example, maybe your clinic marks attendance when a client arrives, whereas another might mark attendance after the session. You might invoice your clients and have them remit payment based on a payment plan or process payment immediately following the session's end. We love hearing about how your practice works and why, because it helps us build more robust, informed features. Here are some examples of the features that we built this year because of user requests. The data here is based on our 2017 survey, and keep in mind we had many other users request these features outside of that formal survey at year's end. So 68% of you requested online intake and consent forms. 47% of you asked for integrated payments and credit card processing, and 100% of our 2017 survey respondents who use online booking asked for improvements to its availability. So with a resounding 100%, we decided that was something that we were going to focus on for 2018. We're going to be sending out the 2018 survey after this webinar, so please be sure to complete it to help us plan for 2019. So let's talk about some new features in OWL. The review, as I mentioned, will be split into two sections. We'll talk about features within the main OWL platform, known as the clinic portal, and we'll talk about features we've released within the client portal as well. Our goal with this review is to cover the most basic functionality and design elements of all of these features in case you missed any of our launch emails. Usage guides for all of these features can also be found in our resource center at faq.owlpractice.ca. I'm going to switch mode here now and just go into my OWL account so I can show you some of these features as we walk through them. The first feature we'll be talking about today is the advanced search. So before this feature launched, you could only search 3 ways in OWL: by client name, client initials, or client ID number. And this was fine for clinics with smaller client lists, but it wasn't ideal for large clinics who work with a wide variety of data. Many of you reached out to tell us that you need more flexibility in your searching, particularly with accounting and year-end reconciliations. With advanced search, you now have a pop-up that allows you to search a wider variety of criteria. And you can see here that you can search using any combination of these filters by simply selecting them. You can also type your query into the search field here, so it might be a client name for someone that I'm looking for, it might be a number, which will get me results for phone numbers, possibly receipts, depending on that criteria that I key in. When you are searching for large volumes of data, OWL limits the search results to 25 items displayed in this results listing here. And we do that to help refine the results and prevent any rendering lag time. The Health ID filter here, this is often missed, but can be useful for those of you who work with third-party billing companies. If a third-party company sends you a payment for a client health ID instead of a client name, you could enter that health ID into the client's profile. So if I were to go into a client record here and go into contact and clinical, and then into my account details, you'll see there's a health ID field. So if I were to put something into that field instead and save it, I could then search for that using my new advanced search criteria. And it'll help you find that much more quickly when you need to locate that client to record payment. Some of the other features that we released in the client record itself are gender and preferred names. These two features were designed after much feedback from our users who work with the LGBTQ+ community. Before we do tour these fields, I would like to say on behalf of OWL Practice, thank you very much to those of you who consulted with us to ensure the accuracy and successful implementation of this feature in particular. The learning opportunities you provided our team were invaluable, and we're so grateful that you shared your expertise with us. So thank you from all of us at OWL. The custom gender fields were added to the client record to make your client documentation more accurate. So rather than selecting a specific gender identity from an options drop-down menu, we created, you'll see here, when I click edit, a blank gender field where you can type in anything that you wish. It's completely suited to your unique individual client needs without any constraints. So I can type anything I want to into this field and save it for my client if I need to. You can also now use a client's preferred name in all areas of OWL, from the calendar and appointment bookings to client portal and appointment reminders. And again, that preferred name there is an important field because you may have people who go by a different name as opposed to their legal name, and there's a preference there to be addressed by the right name. So we have that field as well, and you can just easily edit the profile and put whatever you need to into that preferred field and save it. Another major feature that we released this year is refunds. When a client pays for a session and there is a billing dispute or inaccuracy to be corrected, how do you complete that process? This was a struggle for some of our users. Before we launched refunds, many of you followed our delete the receipt logic to remove a billing inaccuracy, and then you would recreate the payment anew. Though functionally correct and accurate from an accounting standpoint, this approach did not allow you to keep a documented history of those refunds. So payments are refunded by opening a receipt and clicking on the blue refund button. If I go into my client's finances section here, you'll see the receipts for any of my payments. If I were to select one of those payments and click view, I'm sure you've all seen this because you work with invoices and receipts every day. Actually, this one does not have a refund button available. I'm going to go back to an older one. Just a second here. Perfect. So you'll see that blue refund button when you're able to perform a refund for a transaction. Doing so initiates that refund transaction. So you'll see when I click this button, I'll be able to see the items, choose to use the full value, and then refund my payment. When I do that, you'll see here, I automatically get this new refund document that's reflective of that history and that change in the transaction. And it'll be stored here in my refunds tab. So I'll be able to see the history of any refunds that I've done for my transaction. If a dispute arises as to the balance of a client's account or the status of payment, you can always refer to the invoices, receipts, and refund documents that are stored in this finances section of the profile, because it gives you that comprehensive history of the client's financial transactions, and you can reference them anytime you need to. After we launched Refunds, many of you reached out to let us know that you also needed the ability to refund account credits. This was an enhancement we were happy to add immediately following standard refunds to ensure that you had the most robust billing options possible. So now, if you create a transaction that generates credit on the client's account, you can also open that transaction up, and you'll see here a transaction where we've created credit on the client's file, and that's eligible for refund too. We recommend making use of the refunds feature instead of doing that delete the receipt process. You still have the option to do that, but with refunds, you do maintain a history of those transactions. You can visit our Resource Center's refund section to familiarize yourself with all of the different nuances of this feature, because there are some different rules that happen around refunding that you'll want to be aware of. The next feature on our list is called Practice Documents. Many of you loved being able to upload documents to the client profile directly, but wondered where you could upload non-client related documents. Now you can use the Practice Documents section of OWL to easily store and access documentation specific to the clinic itself. This is where you can create a repository of the internal clinical documents, setting up your own system of folders and subfolders for optimal organization. We recommend using Practice Documents to store any documents that are commonly shared and referenced by staff members on a regular basis to centralize more of your administrative work. So you can actually click into the Manage section of OWL here, and then go into the Practice Documents section to see this feature. The main menu of Practice Documents is segmented into 3 master folders, and access to those folders is limited by user role. So we have an owner, an admin, and an all users folder. These 3 main folders cannot be renamed or edited, but you can create as many additional subfolders as needed within to easily organize your documents on a more secure user permissions basis. And you can see here in the sidebar, clicking next to any of those folders gives you options to rename, delete, and change. So you have total control over Practice Documents to structure it internally as needed. The next feature on our list today is integrated payments, and this was perhaps one of OWL's most highly requested features ever, so we were thrilled to launch it in the fall. We can say with pride that OWL now offers integrated credit card processing with Stripe. From within OWL, you can easily create a new Stripe merchant account or connect an existing one, if you'd already worked with Stripe in the past, to start processing credit card payments. You would do that in the payment section. So you'd go into settings, payment details, and then you'll see here, if you're connected, you'll see that you've connected the account, or there would be a button here to connect with Stripe. And you could click that to start the application process and get your Stripe merchant account. Once you've created that account and connected it to OWL, you'll be able to securely capture those client card details and process their payments in Canadian dollars. The fee for payment processing with Stripe is 2.9% plus 30 cents per every transaction, which is billed per transaction at the time of processing. This fee is billed directly by Stripe and is a separate cost in addition to your OWL monthly subscription fee. So as I mentioned, once that merchant account is connected, you can start securely adding the credit cards to your client profiles. So to do that, you would go into a client profile, and then in the contact and clinical section and account details, you'll notice here a payment methods section. So you can click this add payment method button to input the card details. And you'll see here, we'll pre-populate the client name as well as an address if they have it on file, and you can type in that card info there. So the card number, expiry, and then the CVC code. As soon as you enter those details and click the Save button, the card details are submitted to Stripe via a secure real-time API call. Stripe uses the industry standard LUN algorithm, also known as a Mod 10 check, to validate the card. When validation is completed, the card is successfully added and the details are securely verified with Stripe. The card data entered becomes a referenceable token for future transactions. I think we can hear someone's mic. I'm just gonna see if I can mute that. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, sorry about that. Just picking up. As I mentioned, once that card data is entered, it does become a referenceable token, and you'll see it in the client profile here. You'll see the details, but it is vaulted securely, so you won't be able to see the card in full. Sorry, 1 second. I think if there's someone in the webinar is unmuted, could you please just mute your phone or microphone? We're getting a little bit of sound in the background from you.
For January, like I will die. I'll fix them. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to be. I get it. I cheat around a lot, but like, you know, for the first. Okay. All right. And I would think that I can make that change, but sometimes people have a problem. No. Like, come on. Okay. Thank you. I noticed there's a student in 14.
Sorry, I think that's someone on their phone and they haven't muted themselves into the background. I'm just going to see if I can follow up with GoToMeeting to get that person muted.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Sometimes we have technical snafus that we just have to work through. So as I was saying, the card here is stored on file and you'll be able to see the last 4 digits, but because it's stored securely, you won't ever be able to see the full card details there. This is called a CardNotPresent integration. The benefit is that it does not require a physical terminal or card reader. The client only needs to present their card once for the initial capture. And for those of you who aren't bound to an office, instead working from site to site, visiting your clients at their locations or even remotely, this allows you to process payments with greater ease. So that takes us through integrated payments. I'll also mention that when it is time to record payment, you may have noticed for any clients that have a card on file, when you do go to record payment, you'll see that card saved in the drop-down menu as a payment method. So you can easily select that card and use it for payment. Great. Our next feature on the list is availability customization. So most of you who are in a group practice are familiar with the process of adding a therapist profile to OWL and then having to assign their working hours or their availability. The availability dictates when that therapist is working, typically when they're available for client-facing sessions. If you're using the online booking portal, the availability determines the clients who will be able to book their sessions with you at a given time. So if I go into my settings here and I pull open a therapist profile, you'll remember you used to be able to select a profile and you would see the edit button, and in the bottom portion of their profile, you would see their hours. Now we have an availability button that you can click into to deal with the working hours specifically. So previously, you could only assign an overarching schedule of hours in that therapist profile, for example, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And that schedule was for all days, indefinitely, without any granularity. We recognize that many of you work varied hours that were always changing, so we expanded on the availability concept to delineate 2 unique types. Now, in OWL, when you go into availability, you'll see that you have general and specific availability. General availability is that overarching schedule of your hours on a weekly basis. So you're scheduled for the long term. It allows you to establish static, set hours on that weekly basis. For example, if you do always work Monday to Friday from 9 to 5. The specific availability is a new way of creating dynamic patterns in your working schedule. For example, if you typically work Monday to Friday 9 to 5, but have decided to also work Saturday afternoons for the next 2 months, you could layer those hours into your availability for the short term. You can then create patterns that will recur for a certain period of time and end when needed, resuming the pattern established by general availability. You can use the general availability to set those typical working hours and then the specific availability as needed to create nuanced patterns for working hours that deviate from those standard hours. Specific availability supports general availability by giving you that flexibility you need. It's important to remember that the general availability is the first layer of your schedule, so that overarching schedule, and then the specific is that secondary layer supporting it. Once that period has ended, you're back onto the general availability. Another thing that we changed is therapists now have the ability to go into their own schedules and make those changes. Previously in group, this was restricted as part of the settings in OWL, and therapists needed to rely on an office admin to change their hours. They can do this themselves now. Furthermore, our group practices, I'm just going to close out of this view, we're very pleased with the new availability calendar view. If I go into my calendar here, you'll see in the sidebar this clock icon here. You may not have noticed it because it's a very small change to the calendar, but when you click into it, this feature has a huge impact, especially for groups. This is a read-only view that allows you to see each therapist's schedule side by side. You'll see when they're scheduled to work, when they aren't, and any bookings in their schedule for that given day. You can scroll through day by day to see how the schedules change accordingly and what the bookings may be. And you can also filter to view any combination of therapists you wish. So if there's someone that you don't need to see in the view or someone that you would like to see, you can change that view accordingly to add people into it. So we know for our groups, this gives you a lot more visibility into the day-to-day schedule for all of your many therapists working at larger group practices. In addition to this, for anyone who's been waiting to use online booking until our availability offered more flexibility with your services, we also introduced service-specific availability. So if you go into settings and services and fees here, you'll remember when you added a service previously, you were giving it a name, an amount, a type. Now you can actually come in and edit some of those existing services to assign them availability as well. So you can see here, you can choose the days of the week that that service is available. And when you do, even furthermore, specify what hours of the day they're available. So maybe this is available from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. on a Sunday. You can set those hours and give yourself even more control over service availability. And this is respected by the online booking portal so that clients won't be able to book any day of the week for a specific service. So if you only did counseling on Monday evenings, you could set that service up accordingly. If any of you haven't used the online booking portal but are interested in it, we're happy to set you up with a free 14-day trial so you can see what the online portal is all about and see if it would be a good fit for your practice. I also strongly encourage everyone to give the new availability features a try. I know if you're already an established practice who's been used to using OWL, that may not have been an obvious change to you, but it's there, and you can use that availability as needed to give yourselves more flexibility in scheduling each other. So while we're talking about services in relation to the client portal, let's switch gears and talk about some of the client portal features and changes that we've made. A major focus for our team this year was expanding on our existing client portal. The client portal, you'll recognize here, is a client-facing set of features used for therapist and client interactions. It's an invaluable tool for streamlining your intake processes and also your appointment scheduling, and it contains two core features: the online booking portal, which many of you are familiar with, and our online intake and consent forms, which were released this spring. We've made quite a few improvements to online booking in 2018, but they were primarily design and UI based. So the view options were made more clear, and we also improved our mobile design as well, because we recognize that a lot of people on the go are using their mobile devices to log in and book those sessions. As I mentioned in the spring, we launched the online intake and consent forms feature, which empowered clinics to create their own customized digital intake process that's more convenient, professional, and secure, and ties into everything that you're doing with OWL. In the platform here, you'll see in the Manage section, just going to open this up, a Forms area. And this is where we offer a unique form building tool that allows you to create your own custom forms, which can be sent to clients via email. When a client receives a form, they're prompted to complete it in OWL's secure and PHIPAA compliant client portal. All of the forms that you send from OWL can be viewed in various stages of completion from the Documents section in Client Profiles. And you can see all of the forms that have been sent to, are in progress, or fully completed by any given client. So you have a lot of visibility into how your clients are doing with those forms. As I mentioned, in the Manage section here, you'll see a library of any forms that you've created and the option to create more. So this is typically where you get started in creating your first form. When you come in here, you'll click that plus icon to get started. You can give your form a title, and then you can start adding questions to it as well. There are any number of different question types that you can choose from. You'll see here we have text, number-based questions, checkboxes, drop-downs, etc. So we have a wide range to suit your needs for intake process. You'll also notice here that we have an intake module. The intake module directly corresponds to the client profile, so any information that they submit that hits these criteria are automatically updated and put into their profile for ease. So you no longer have to transcribe forms that have been filled out and input them into the client profile. That happens automatically with any of the intake fields you choose to use as part of your form. We also have a signature module, so you'll see here, with a customizable label, so you can set out any terms that you need the client to agree to as part of that process. And they can input a digital signature so that you have verification that they've read the form and agree to the terms laid out. Like all of our features, intake and consent forms was designed to streamline the time and effort spent on those administrative processes. Practices can use the client portal to allow clients to book their first appointment and then send an intake form as a follow-up to that booking before the client even arrives for their session. If you are looking to expand your practice in 2019, the client portal can help you do so. OWL's client portal is a premium feature that requires a plan upgrade, so if you're not yet on a premium plan but would like to consider it, again, I urge you to do a 14-day free trial of the online portal so you can see that feature for yourself and try it out. That takes me through all of the features today that we wanted to review and show you, the major features that we've released for OWL. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We really appreciated it. And as a special thank you, we're also sharing a referral promotion with all of you. I'm just going to pull up my screen here so you can see the details. All you have to do is recommend OWL to a friend or colleague to be eligible for this discount. When they sign up for a paid plan and tell us that they were referred by you, you'll both get $20 off 1 month of OWL. And this is our way of saying thank you for your referrals and for your love of OWL. Please know that this offer cannot be combined with any other promotion, but we're open to helping new colleagues get started. So this is our thank you to you. Thanks so much again, everyone, for attending today's webinar. I hope it was helpful and informative, and you got a chance to see some of those major features released that you maybe hadn't noticed before or just wanted some more information about. If you do have any questions or feedback, please email support@owlpractice.ca, and our team is ready to help. For anyone who is interested, please stay on the line, and we'll be starting the question and answer portion of the webinar now. So I'm just going to pull open GoToMeeting and look at the chat section. I see a lot of chats were happening as I was talking, and I'm just going to go through that back scroll and see how things are going there. I see Abigail Whitney had mentioned that one thing she'd like to see more easily is how many sessions she's had per client. Let me just see here. I'm going back to. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to switch into my view of OWL as well. That's good feedback, Abigail. We'd love to give you those stats. You can also see that in each client as well. You can see a history of their sessions with you when you go into Contact and Clinical. You can always see the attendance count for that client to see how many sessions. And we do have dashboard metrics on the number of sessions that you've had in a given time period, but I think being able to drill down per client is good feedback as well. Okay, just looking here, it looks like Safina addressed a couple of questions as well about Contact and Clinical and the sessions per client. I see a question here about the storage capacity as well. I'm just looking to see what is the storage capacity of practice docs. The storage capacity, it looks like Safina has answered that question as well. Each OWL practice plan has a storage amount associated with it, and practice documents is included in that amount. We had another question from Megan about if there were going to be any updates to features for practices with admin, accounting staff, and multi-therapists. For example, being able to give different accessibility information to admin staff versus accounting. And it looks like Tila gave us some information about group edition and the 3 user types. We do hear that users would like to have more nuances in those permissions. So that's something we are interested in exploring. And it looks like Jay also asked a question about being able to read notes continuously rather than having to exit and click on each specific note. I think that would be a good feature too, being able to scroll through those client notes. So thanks for that feedback, Jay. I see Safina also addressed this question where she mentions that in session notes, you can use multiple templates and you can refer to a client's most recent note to continuously write notes based on past sessions. Megan asked, are there any plans to update the options for setting up note templates, so more comprehensive options to customize? That's good feedback as well, Megan. We'll definitely take that into consideration. I know one of the things our team did as well for new practices was build in preset templates for notes, so that there would be a couple of recommended templates there. We could talk about what those templates are offline and see if any of them might suit your needs as well, but that's great feedback. Brigitte asked a question about will OWL speed increase next year? We have a long delay when clicking on a calendar. Brigitte, I'm happy to let you know that our team has been busy at work on optimizing a lot of that function of OWL in terms of speediness and responsiveness. And that is always an ongoing concern for our team. So we do have resources allocated to that effort as we speak. I also have a question here about practice docs. Can I send a document from practice docs to a client? The answer to that is no. The practice docs area is intended to be a repository of your clinical documents. And if you did have docs that you needed to send to clients, you would either create them as forms or you would have a means of circulating it to them via email outside of OWL. That's interesting feedback though, and I'm happy to take that to our team following this session as well. Just reading a few more questions here in the chat section for everyone who's interested. Wynn asked about the 3 options that come up when creating a new session note and what do they mean. If I'm understanding your question correctly, Wynn, I'm thinking you might be referring to when you choose a template for that note and what to do with it. So if I were to create a session note and choose a template, I have these 3 options with my template. Is that what you're referring to? If so, what this means is when I choose a template, append at the start means that if I've already started typing up a note here, and then I say that I want to apply a template, append to start means I'd be putting that template at the start of my note before what I've written. Append to end means I'd be adding it onto existing text, so following it, and then replace means I'd be replacing that text entirely with that note template. So you'll see if I choose append to end, it'll just add that template after the note that I've started writing. Perfect. All right. I'm glad I was able to answer that for you, Wynn. Just looking through some more of our questions here. Is there a way to not have to write the client's name each time? That question's from Wynn again. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, Wynn, if you're talking about not having to write their name in a note or in search. A little more clarity there would help. I'm just wondering what you're referring to specifically. Kirsty, great question. In order to send intake forms from OWL to a client, do you have to be signed up for online booking, or is there the option to be able to send intake forms but not allow online booking? Absolutely. The online intake forms are part of our client portal and they leverage that functionality, but your client doesn't have to have a portal and you don't have to allow online booking for your account if you're not interested in doing that. When you send a form from OWL, all that's required from your client is their email address. So when I come into Manage here and I go into Forms, I'm just going to close out of the form I started building here. If I select one of these forms and click Send, I can type in my client's name, and as long as they have an email address on file, they'll get the link to that form and they can submit it. So they will be answering that form in a secure area that we've hosted, but they're not necessarily having to create an online portal account. So you can send forms, have them complete them online, but not open up online booking if you don't want to for your practice. And vice versa. For some practices, they might want to have online booking, but they don't have a need of forms. You can have that premium feature and choose which aspects of it you're using. We recommend taking advantage of both features because in combination, they do streamline a lot of the administrative work when it comes to booking your clients and gathering their information up front. I have another question here about any plans to directly connect to an accounting system in terms of an integration. So like QuickBooks, for instance. That's a great question, and that's come up a few times from our user base. It's something that we are interested in looking into and may consider as a future development. I know right now for anyone with their accounting systems, what you do is go to our dashboard section and gather that raw reporting data. And most commonly for people using QuickBooks, import it as a batch data or a batch journal entry. But that is something that we think could be worth investigating and seeing if it would be something that would work for our clients in future, for sure. Okay, another question here. Once a session is canceled or late canceled, we are unable to add more information into the bottom of the page as it is no longer open. Can this be changed to add additional comments? Interesting. I think that might be something we could look into offline, Brigitte, just to find out if there is an issue there or something around the functionality that needs to happen. But you're saying that when you do mark a session, let me just see here. I should have a session here in my calendar. But if you were to mark a session canceled, you can't go into more information and add any comments. I think that might be what you're referring to. So if you were to try and update that session, it's letting you know, oh, interesting, okay. I think I might have to look into that one for you. I mean, it looks as though it should action and you should be able to add commentary there. I'll check into that and find out. You can also add comments to a client profile anytime you need to in that contact and clinical section. So if there are any comments you don't want to miss out on, you can add them there. But I'll look into that offline for you and find out some more information. Christy asks, I do not have a form tab under my manage. Is this something I need to create, or is it a feature that depends on the account with OWL? Yes, if you don't see the forms section in manage there, it means that you're not on a premium plan, so you don't have access to that feature yet. If you're interested in trying it out, we can enable you for a 14-day free trial of the online booking portal as well as the forms feature. Just reach out to our support team to let us know if you're interested in getting started with that, and we'll set you up. Okay, I'm just getting to the bottom of the questions here. Okay, I think I've covered everything in the chat, and so have some of our customer advocates as well, who've been very helpful answering these questions. If there are any others, please feel free to type them into the chat. I'll be online for another 4 or 5 minutes or so to answer any questions. But if you are busy and you do need to run, feel free to drop off the call. As I mentioned, we are recording this session, so we will send you a copy of that after the fact, and you can always reach out to our support team anytime to get in touch. Okay, just looking here through some of our questions. Brigitte asks, is there a chance to change the box indicating attendance percentage and make this box available to provide information regarding the clinic? For example, do not speak to mom, or this is dad of client B. The to-do button is still not effective to flag emergency situations. I think, Brigitte, you're talking about attendance percentage. Do you mean in reference to the client's account or the client face sheet in sessions, where you can see here when you open the face sheet, you do have that attendance percentage, and then you do have the option for account details to view any comments that have been logged there. Or if you want to, I can also show you this. One of the things we did as a minor enhancement, if actually this session here is canceled, but what I'm going to do is find one that has comments here. I'm going to schedule another session for Jessica, just for your reference. When you're actually invoicing that client, we ported over the client face sheet, so you can open it here from within the invoice as well to view those account details and view those comments. So I know when you talk about needing information for an emergency situation, if you add those comments at that account level for things that you commonly need to know about that client, you can access it here in the invoice too. So before you send that invoice, you can check into account details and look to see if there are any comments. So you can see them right from that invoicing page. And that should hopefully help with information that's important that you need to know about before billing. Oh, I see. Okay, you're talking about actually opening the client account, not after invoicing. I think this might be an issue that we can talk about offline as well. If there are any issues that any of you are having with OWL or specific scenarios that you want to run through, you can definitely get in touch with our support team to do that. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up today, keeping in line with the webinar itself and some of those new features. But if you do have something that seems like it might be outside of that case, definitely a good idea to get in touch with the support team so we can address it directly. Okay, just looking through here to make sure we've caught all the questions. There's been a lot of good chat in the chat section here, and I'll be online for another moment or two. Yes, okay, so Brigitte, I see another question here from you about a client being set up with Dr. A, but they're coming in to meet with Dr. B because of crisis, and previously you were able to change the therapist while setting up that session. Now you have to go in the client account and change it. Why did we do that? I think that's a change that we wanted for more security in terms of ACL and respecting clients being booked with the therapist that they've been assigned to. I think that's something we've heard some feedback about as well, that I'd be happy to get in touch with you about offline to talk about things that we could do around that to improve it a little bit more in future. And I think our team is mindful of this issue too. Okay, and I see a couple more questions here from Win. I'm just going to check to see if you're still on the line. I think you are still with us. Okay, so you'd asked a question about having templates where there is tombstone data at the top of the template. Is there a way to automatically fill in that client name and date of session? That's an interesting question, and I think it is different from how our forms feature functions. What we do in OWL when you're submitting data for a client, when you're recording a note, that's connected to the session and to the session name, and the forms, those are wide open so that when they're sent to the client, they're filled into the client's specification. So if you have the email on file, you can send that form to them, but the fields are totally open for them to input. With the forms, I'll also mention that intake module. Anything that you update there is updated in the client's profile directly. So for instance, this one here, I'm going to edit. I think I should have an intake module here. Let me just see. I do. Yes. So I'm going to just remove that and go to add it again. So when you actually do an intake module, first name and last name are fields that you can capture. And when you say that you want the client to fill those out, anything they input there will override their existing client profile that you have in OWL with a new first name and last name. It might wind up being the same, but for some people, what they'll do is just not put the first name and last name into that intake form because you already have the name for that client on file. So you would go into asking other questions. And in this regard, they don't need to populate their own name, if that makes sense. And when you'd also asked, how do we know what type of account we have, if it's premium or not? Great question. If you have access to the online booking portal or to the forms feature, then you have a premium account. And if you don't, you're likely just on a standard plan. You can always reach out to our team to have them confirm your plan type as well, and details around your storage allowance and your plan type. So if you don't have access to forms or online booking, you're not on a premium plan, but we can easily set you up with one if needed, or a trial. Yes, and Wynn says I don't have forms, so I guess I don't have a premium account. That's correct. I'll have our sales coordinator check your account after the webinar and send you an email to let you know what your plan type is. This brings up a good point though, and that's something that we're looking into in future for OWL, is having a section in your account that does give you specifics about your billing period as well as the plan type that you're on, because that is important information to have at your fingertips. Okay, I'm just scrolling through and I think we've captured all of the questions. The advocates have been busy answering away as well. And we're just about 4 o'clock now. So we're going to end the session there. Thank you again so much, everyone, for participating in the webinar. We're thrilled that we were able to launch so many great new features to OWL that you could take advantage of. And we're really looking forward to developing even more great features in 2019. So please send us your feedback if you do have any, burning desires or questions about things that you'd like to see, because that feedback is really critical to what we do in future at OWL and really helps us make sure we're delivering great product. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.